Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio. We're going to start off with our foundational verse again because I can't live without it. It's the earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord, for he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. God is the creator of the world. That is why we use this to help us through every single day of our lives on issues and topics and how to deal with things, right, Dad?
Yeah, I mean that's the key. That's the book, and the relationship will develop as you read the book. The book is alive. It's like it says it's a living word of God. It's like a double-edged sword. God uses it, and the thing that's important about reading the Bible is you begin to recognize His voice, because Jesus said, "My sheep recognize my voice." And Jesus also said in John 10, I call them by their name. God knows our name, and he wants that personal relationship with us. And we have to remember that. And the world belongs to him. Now, there's an evil one out there that thinks that they're in control, but they're only in control because we've allowed it to happen. And that's what we've got to, where are the things that we can do to stop the evil one from destroying people, children, society?
Yeah. Well, speaking of children, we've got Cathy Peters back. Cathy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, you wrote a book. I think it's called Child Sex Trafficking in Canada. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's what we're talking about again today. Oh, there it is. We're going to put it up here right there. There it is. This is the second edition and how to stop it. That is the key. We want to talk about that, Cathy. How do we stop child sex trafficking? But first, we got to understand what the indicators are. Can you tell us what the indicators of sex trafficking are?
Okay. I keep it fairly simple, but aside from a gut feeling, and I say to parents, if you have a gut feeling something's off, listen to that. So parents, teachers, service providers can all have a feeling that something's wrong, but the following character traits and situations have been observed as linked to an individual who's being trafficked or exploited. So they have fake ID. They don't own very many personal possessions. They don't speak for themselves. They owe a debt. They're not free to come and go. They display signs of malnutrition and poor hygiene. They're showing signs of physical abuse with bruises, broken bones, or black eyes, tattoos, and tattoos are cool, or branding symbols. They wear expensive clothing, accessories, or jewelry they cannot afford. They have well-kept nails and or lashes. They become fearful, anxious, depressed, nervous, isolated, paranoid. They are showing memory loss. They are suffering drug and alcohol addiction. No eye contact. They have a new circle of friends that you may not get to know. Their grades are dropping. There's a change in attitude towards school, activities, family, and friends. They skip school. They're exhausted. Oh, they have 2 phones. They're starting to wear inappropriate or provocative clothing. Or they have an older partner or boyfriend you may or may not meet. They get involved in gang or criminal activity. They fear for their safety, and they become secretive. Now, that was quite a long list, but I'm going to say to your audience, on my website, I've got that all written down comprehensively, all the indicators. And my website, again, is beamazingcampaign.org. So everything that we're talking about in these interviews in this series is found on my website.
You know, that's scary, isn't it? I mean, first of all, how far, what are the statistics of how far that goes before mom and dad actually realize that something's going on that's wrong?
That's a really good question. I haven't ever thought of that or I haven't ever heard about that, but I think pretty early on, parents, if they're engaged or connected with their children at all, and I think that's my word of advice to parents, stay connected with your children. If you're connected, you're going to get something's off pretty early on. Even individuals that I've spoken to that have been trafficked, they knew that their parents knew something was going on pretty early on. But I do want to jump in right away. If you think someone is being sex trafficked, what do you do? And I'm just going to encourage everybody, the police are your best friends. Report, 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 report. And also the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. I haven't held it up before. Whoops, here it is. It's 1-833-900-1010. All of you should know that number. And if you think that your children is involved in sexual activities, that you have a gut sense that something's off, what should you do? I would say get professional help as soon as possible. Call the hotline number, talk to someone. There are a lot of excellent resources in Canada, but the main thing is stay connected to your child no matter what. Don't get freaked out. I say to parents all the time, don't get freaked out. And assure them you love them and you are there for them. Parents are the main influencers in a child's life.
Do you know of children that have been rescued in Canada?
Well, I've been doing this work full time now for the last 11 years. I started this 45 years ago when I was an inner city high school teacher. So my students were involved in this. That's why I really saw it and learned about it. But it's been the last 11 years full time. I've had hundreds families and survivors speak to me. So that's why I wrote the book, because that's their stories. I've got all the stories. People that have talked to me have told me their stories. They're not necessarily willing to report, especially the Indigenous. Indigenous women are very hesitant to report. They're not encouraged to report to the police, so they'll tell me their stories, and then I write them down in my book. I sort of, mix all the stories together so people get the general idea. But yes, I've heard from hundreds and hundreds of survivors, all ages.
Is it because they don't trust the police?
Well, that's another really good question. I think they've been encouraged not to trust the police. When I present to the Indigenous, and I do a lot, I encourage them to report to the police. But again, it's dependent on the leadership, who is leading the bands and what kind of experience they've had with the police. The good news, I can just speak for British Columbia. We do have Aboriginal policing that's developing. And with the RCMP, I've gotten to know some of the Aboriginal police folks, and they're excellent. So I certainly am encouraging to the Indigenous chiefs that I meet with to please come alongside and work together with the police as much as they can.
Cathy, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back, and for people, you got to go back and watch the first program for you to get a really stronger foundation of what we're talking about. There's a disconnect in my mind. This is such a strange conversation to have. And I know you've said you've had difficulty at times, to get people to listen, especially in churches and stuff. And I understand why, because it's like, it doesn't connect in my mind that this is a problem in Canada, that this even happens in Canada, but it does. How bad is this in Canada, the sex trafficking trade?
Well, the internet really has made this whole situation explode. So you can go back to year 2000, really, when the internet became sort of normalized. And this phone, the smartphone, has really done it. What do we say? The smartphone is ubiquitous, I think. What's the year? 2015, I think the majority of young people had smartphones. So it is a smartphone. The at risk is the internet. That is how this is all happening. So this is a global problem. It's not just in Canada, but Canada is vulnerable because we're not talking about it. And I say churches and church people are vulnerable because we're not talking about it. And what I want to assure Christian folks that are watching this program, don't say it can't happen to your children or can't happen in your family. As a matter of fact, traffickers are targeting Christian girls specifically because they're healthy, they're wholesome, they're friendly, they're outgoing, and they're unsuspecting. And the parents are unsuspecting. So what I say to people, I don't mean to be negative in any way, but assume the worst. And then we have to be proactive and preempt. I was an inner city high school teacher, and I learned one thing I never taught with my back turned on my students. I taught grade 8, grade 9, grade 10. I learned to always teach looking directly at my students because I never knew what they were going to do. I just knew, not to trust people. And that's scriptural, isn't it? That we're not to put our trust in princes. And so just, I don't mean to be negative. I want to empower your audience so we can be proactive. Again, I'm not going to say it's anybody's fault, but the internet has made all of this possible. I think that's my main point.
Can you explain to me how? Because when I watch Sound of Freedom and I hear other stories like Theo Fleury, I understand that, right? Like he's young, he comes from an abusive family, he gets shipped off to some other province, with a coach. The coach then physically abuses him and all that kind of stuff. Sound of Freedom, it's like I think it was like an offer to be a star, a model, get into the movies, be an actor. So I understand those venues of kind of how it happens and the grooming happens. How does this happen on the internet? Is it through chat? Is it through, apps? How are they being targeted through the internet?
Well, it's all through social media. And I mean, if parents are letting their youth on social media, those apps, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, even YouTube, Pinterest, any of those, and the boys now are on the gaming, doing the gaming has become extremely popular. So then you get the direct messaging. I'm not very techie, but the direct messaging takes place. So what we're saying is over 90% of the luring and grooming of youth and children today in our culture is happening online, mainly through the social media apps. So one thing parents can automatically do to preempt and sort of slow all of this down is no phones, no devices until they're 16, a flip phone, a dumb phone, okay, and no social media until they're 15 or 16. That is the reality now that we're dealing with. I mean, I'm all for get phones out of the schools. I mean, we've really got to turn the dial on this. There's a man called Dr. Jonathan Haidt. Maybe you've all heard of him. He's got his bestseller book called The Anxious Generation, where he exposes how social media is literally creating mental illness in our children, but also gives access for predation.
Have you found with people, they can get an unrealistic fear about all this, and therefore they're so nervous that they don't want to go out into the general public or do anything. They almost want to go into the closet and shut the door, and they withdraw from society because of the fear.
I just love the way you're thinking, and I love this question, but as Christians, we're called to be salt and light. So I see this whole thing as a wonderful opportunity to make a difference, and my goodness, we can make a difference. I'm just one person. I'm an old woman. I'm a grandmother making a difference. Somebody I love, and I read a lot, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who wrote the Gulag Archipelago, he says, the battle line between good and evil runs through the heart of every man. And then he added, after his experience in the gulags, men have forgotten God. So I just say to your audience, you say you know God, you're following Jesus Christ, then be out there. There's a movie out there, a whole series called The Chosen, and it's become quite popular with people. And I think it appeals because it shows raw humanity, real live people, and how the gospel changes and transforms the hearts of men and women in very real ways. And I think of that William Wordsworth poem. What is it called? The Psalm of Life. Life is real. Life is earnest. And I would say to all of your audience, get out there and live life. Have the adventure. And we are the change makers.
Yeah. Well, I agree with your... go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, when Corey was a little boy, and of course I grew up on a farm, I didn't want to raise my children in the city. And I know that everybody doesn't get that chance to not do that, but the good Lord gave us a chance to do that. Now, sometimes our kids didn't like to live out in the country. They wanted to hang around in the, 7-Eleven store or whatever in the city. But it's like, no, no, no. We want to get you out in the country. Then once you get out in the country, you can have your motorcycles or whatever and have fun out in the country, and it's safe. So way back when he was a little boy, which is, getting to be a long time now, we were aware of that. And I did have to remind my wife once in a while not to be overly fearful, right? There's a trust, but there was also a curfew. Like when they became teenagers, you got to be home by this time. And if you can't be home by this time, we expect a phone call of why you're not home. And you just start to develop some safeguards that help you to watch over your children. Is that unreasonable?
Oh, I think that's absolutely wonderful. I mean, knowledge is power. And what I'm hoping we can do in this series is give your audience some strategies, because the reality is you can't hide your children from the world. You can't become a mole, dig yourself into a hole, and disappear. We're called here to live and to live life and to live life well. I mean, that is the message of the gospel. That is the good news. I mean, I hope you've picked this up by now. I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist. We can turn the dial back on this actually quite quickly. If Christians would be willing to hear this program for however many series you run, really listen and apply these strategies, you have nothing to be afraid of. God is very much with you. And what is that verse? He's not given us the spirit of fear, but the spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. That is the reality. Remember, life is real, life is earnest. We are required to go live it. But I want to back up a little bit about who's at risk at being trafficked, so we don't have that paranoia happening. The majority are young girls, 12 to 14, and much younger ages in the urban centers. Boys are getting targeted on gaming sites, as I mentioned. The ages are getting younger and younger, but that's mainly because parents are giving their devices to children too young. There is a high demand for children. Exploiting children now is where the money is, and there is a specific market for the extremely vulnerable Indigenous women and girls in this country. And there's been an increase in trafficking since the beginning of COVID because youth were isolated. There's a key. We don't want our youth isolated, and they were spending too much time online. So I also want to go over, how does grooming and luring occur? So just so you all know, the traffickers' average age is about 24, so they're young, but they're very sophisticated, they're highly organized, and they're good on the tech. They use boyfriending tactics. They promise gifts and friendship. They say they love their victims, but this will be only temporary. They will isolate, again, here's the key word, isolate their victims from family and friends, and they are the ones that will fuel a victim's mistrust of police. So again, in your families, the police are your best friends. So you can counter that. And I want to say, unsafe people, traffickers, will get sexual very, very, very fast. So there's your red flag. Traffickers will use violence, threats of violence against the whole family, deception, debt, bondage, isolation, there's that word again. They will lure, they will groom, they will coerce, and they will manipulate, leading to recruitment and exploitation directly into the sex industry. So I want to be really clear, the sex industry is deadly. That's why I do prevention, and I talk about the strategies so we can keep our children out of the sex industry, because once they're in, we say only 1% to 5% ever get out. The ones that stay in, the majority that stay in, become mentally ill, drug addicted, commit suicide, or are murdered. So there's a real impetus to keep our children out. And I want to add 95 to 99% that are in the sex industry, that are prostituted, are pimped or trafficked. And it's a very, very lucrative crime for traffickers. That is why they do it.
Mm. You're talking about strategy. Can you give me some strategy for my younger child? He's 11. And, to say you can't have a phone or an iPad, or the gaming, you know how difficult that is? Because that is their culture. You know what I mean? That is everything, and it's very, I'm talking as a parent now. very difficult to explain to your young child why they can't have an iPhone or an iPad or do these certain things because everybody else is doing it. Their best friends are doing it, and then to be like, well, I don't want you trafficked. I mean, they wouldn't understand that. You know what I mean? Like, they don't get it. Is there tips and tricks that parents can do to kind of help discourage it, to distract them or get them onto something else? Because right now that's the culture, and it's very difficult for parents to be the parent to say no.
Okay, boy, you just said an awful lot. That is the culture. So we have to change the culture. We are change makers. So let's start to make a difference. You say you have an 11-year-old. Delay is the way. And the line to him is not yet. When he asks for a phone, it's not yet. Who pays for the phone? Parents pay. And what parents need to understand, if you're paying for that phone, you're responsible for that phone. So let's say they start sexting and sending nudes. That is actually child pornography. And the parents would be criminally liable. So I really try to scare parents a bit. Don't be so quick to go out and pay for that phone because you have the responsibility for it. So what I would say is not yet, and delay is the way. And if you are going to go over devices, you lend a device, you do it together, you co-play, you do things together, and we call it scaffolding. Again, you do everything together. Also, you're going to have to find other families that think the same way as you do. So I know with the younger ones, young parents that I'm meeting now, they're starting to find each other and agree that phones are really bad, are really dangerous, and they're getting more and more groups agreeing with each other that when they do play dates and that kind of things, there's not going to be any phones. I'm really encouraging young parents, don't have your phones out all the time when you're with your children because they're just role modeling what they see you do. So, I mean, we got to be really smart about this. We can be, but it can be incremental, but I don't want you discouraged. Again, get my book. I've got chapters on this, and hopefully I can go over in more detail in the series about what parents can do.
Let's go back quickly to the person. You gave a whole bunch of symptoms of, flags of someone that, possibly is having trouble, right? Like they're distant and tattoos and, and a boyfriend that you don't recognize and he's older. Like, what does a parent do if they suspect something like that is happening?
Well, you're going to get help ASAP. And I mean, I wouldn't hesitate to start by calling this number. And I also wouldn't hesitate calling the police. The police are now getting training on this. So I wouldn't hesitate to get the police involved, but I would get help just as soon as possible. So again, police, the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. But I do want to go over who are the victims. Typically, they are female, but it's a growing number of boys. Traffickers are looking for vulnerability, and they really are targeting people that are 30 years of age and younger. Who are the traffickers? Let's talk about who they are. They're dominantly male, with recent trends showing a growing number of females. They'll recruit their girlfriends. Traffickers are moving very fast, organized crime, and even sometimes family members are involved. And who are the buyers? We never talk about the buyers. So we've got buyers that are lawyers, doctors, judges, pastors, people in positions of authority. So it's the male buyers that are root cause of harm caused by human trafficking. They come from all ages and demographics. And according to Canadian law, if we would enforce it, they are supposed to be criminally charged. And I think in Canada, if we started charging the sex buyers, that's how the law was designed, the root cause, we would see deterrence in place and men wouldn't be so quick to buy. I mean, the only reason there's human trafficking is because there's sex buyers. And what is that demographic? Well, typically they're over 50, they're married, they have a college degree, they make over $100,000 a year, they're in prominent positions of leadership, of authority, and people are afraid to report on them. Again, Peter Nygaard was the fashion icon out of Winnipeg. I mean, he was notorious as a sex buyer, and we need to get those big names. Just a few big names would make a big difference. And would you mind if I jumped into the trends and talked about the trends that are happening right now currently?
Well, we're out of time. Well, I'm going to have you back. We're going to start off with talking about the trends in the next show, but we're currently out of time. Cathy, really appreciate you. We're definitely going to have you back, and we're going to start off with talking about the trends. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing in bringing this conversation to light. And I know it's not an easy one to have, but it's super important because the statistics just drive me crazy. 1 to 5%, I think you said, get out of it. Like that's astronomical. That number's crazy. Thank you so much, Cathy. We'll have you back. Fascinating conversation. I'm sorry we're out of time, but we'll have her back. Alan, let's quickly tell everybody about what's happening on July 31st.
Well, we're going to have what we're calling the Talk Truth by-election candidate forum. And the reason why, and this is going to be on Thursday, the 31st of July in Tofield at the House Ministries. It's a church that I started. And it's because it's at the heart of the Polyev federal by-election riding of Battle River Crowfoot. And so we've invited all of the candidates who represent a registered federal party to come, and we're going to ask them questions, and we're going to let the audience ask some questions. And then obviously we're going to have opportunity as well, Corey, for people to ask us questions.
Yeah. So kind of like a meet and greet, but also a little forum with the candidates for that by-election. Alan, we've sent out the invites to the candidates. Do you think Pierre Poilievre will show up?
Well, that's up to him and his schedule and whatever. I mean, We're going to ask the question. The questions are going to be there. We're going to broadcast the answers because this is the 31st. The advanced ballot doesn't start until the 8th of August, and the election is the 18th of August. So there's time for us to give opportunity for people to understand who is going to stand up for what we believe or don't believe, how we're going to get Canada straightened around, and what these people are planning to do. So it'll be interesting to see who shows up and who doesn't. I believe they're all going to show up because we're going to give everybody a fair hearing. And Leighton Gray is going to be our moderator.
Yeah, Leighton's going to be there. I think Tanner and Aday is going to be there. You and I will be there. It's going to be an awesome event. And you guys can go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on events, register. I mean, just register that you want to be there. I think we're only limited, 500 people, Alan?
Yeah, 500 people. Doors open at 6 o'clock. It starts at 6:30.
You want to help support our mission, keep this conversation and truth on the air. We are viewer supported. We don't take government funds. It's just because of the generosity of you who watch this show. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on donate. That way you can give digitally. If you'd like to do it through the mail, you can. You can make your gift payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association and send it to 246 Stewart Green, Southwest Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H 3C8. All your gifts are tax deductible. And if you'd like prayer, you can call our toll-free line 1-800-915-0056 in Canada. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.